Hello, friends. In case we haven't yet had the chance to meet, my name is Brent, and I am a productivity and self-actualization coach. And so I'm making a video today that is intended to be a guide for approaching and moving into the year 2023. I'm doing this mostly because when I was speaking with people in December, it's like, hey, are you excited for the new year? Are you excited for like new change, new challenge? Do you have New Year's resolutions? Often people have some sort of enthusiasm or optimism about going into the new year, but this time was different. Like I asked a lot of people, I did a really good sample of everybody I could ask, and there actually wasn't a whole lot of enthusiasm. There was a little bit more reluctance and confusion and pain and like, oh man, like 2022 really messed me up and I'm not really feeling this upcoming year. And so I thought that was interesting. And so I gave it some thought and I realized that what's happening, just as I was contemplating it, is that what's happening is there's so much change that we're undergoing. So there's all this societal change, cultural change, development and growth. There's all this interchange and like both on the local and the macro level that it's a little bit dizzying. And if it's properly framed, if it's put in its right context, it can be really exciting, because what that means is that there's a whole bevy of opportunity now that's available for us that was never available before, if we can have the eyes to see it and recognize it and really go ahead with it. And so to do that, though, we need to attain a really good sense of alignment. We need to align with ourselves. We need to accomplish inner alignment, alignment with the present moment, and just a sense of wiping the slate clean, approaching everything fresh, starting over, and really seeing everything as it is. And so I put that all into this concept of inner alignment. This also leads me to an important point, which is that I'm offering a coaching package called Inner Alignment 2023, which is my most comprehensive and flexible and accessible package yet. I'm really, really happy with it. I hope you get a chance to look at it. There's a link below. Please take a minute to look at it and see if it's up your alley, because it's a 10-session package that we're going to use to go super deep into your life to get a sense of where is your head up your ass, where are you locked in your mind, where are you banging your head against the wall, and where can we get you to a place of clarity and power and creativity where we know what you're doing, we know it needs to be done, we know how to do it, and we know how to get you to do it. Like all the, these are the main pillars of productivity. So if you feel like you could benefit from that kind of support, then I definitely recommend checking it out. You'll learn a little bit more in the link below, and there's a little video, and there's payment plans. And so if you're feeling it, if you need it, then it should be hopefully possible for you to take me up on this offer. So that is the promo. Thank you so much for hearing that. Now, in the video though, just because I've been contemplating alignment, inner alignment so much, I thought of 4 major things that you can do, 4 major statements or suggestions that I'm going to offer you here, that if you take them and work with them and integrate them, you should be able to accomplish a great level of alignment on your own. And it should really set you up so that you're ready. You're honestly centered and ready to take on this year and to take on whatever it has to offer you, instead of being dragged into it, kicking and screaming. I love this stuff. At the risk of being annoying, I love New Year's. I love New Year's resolutions. I love it when we can just start fresh, even though it's just kind of, you can make an argument. It's like a psychological thing. It's like, oh, like nothing's really happening. It's like it's the same today as it was yesterday. It's just a calendar year. But even still, there's just a big wiping clean of the slate that comes when we move into January, and we can look out over the next 12 months and we can just ask once again, if this year went good, what would that look like? What would it look like if things went unusually well? And I would invite you, just this final point on this topic, I would invite you to just imagine if things went sort of so good that you might struggle a little bit to believe it, what would that look like? It's really important to return to these questions again and again and again, because we want to have some part of our unconscious mind focused on the best possible outcome. Because if we don't do that, then what we end up doing is just asking for less and less and less. We ask for less, we don't get it. So it's like, okay, I'll lower my expectations and ask for less, and I'll lower my expectations and ask for less. And then we just kind of end up in this like little like hole in the ground where we're just like taking what we can get, the scraps of life, when in reality, just returning to the best possible outcome just it refreshes our imagination and opens up new possibility, just because we can start looking for it. Our unconscious mind is now looking for it instead of looking for disappointment. So just some opening remarks there on the new year. I would like you also to contemplate, this is my note here, where are you psychologically crusty? Where are you psychologically crusty? Where are you just kind of constantly saying you're going to do something and not doing it, constantly trying to get something and not getting it? Where are you like trying the same technique and it's not working? Just boot that up just as we go through this. So going into the talk, I'm going to introduce the 4 major points. I'm going to give you their titles, and then I'm going to explain them, and I'm going to wrap it up at the end. And if I have a little bit extra initiative, I'll time stamp them on the YouTube video so you can index them for your reference. No promises, maybe. I like the look of it though. Point 1, claim worthiness. So we know how worthy we're supposed to feel. And I would like for us to really see it and step into it. I would love for us to really claim worthiness. Number 2, express your interior. So that which is in you, to express that which is more intimate to yourself, let that be seen by the world. And I'll explain why and why that's important and powerful. Number 3, create a precedent. So this will speak in particular to this effect of asking for less and less, and then kind of getting caught up with like zero expectations and only disappointment, and how to really turn it around kind of on a dime. And number 4 is sell your perfection and purchase completion. And we're going to talk about perfectionism. Good. I know I sometimes go on in these videos, and I will attempt to keep it short, but there's a lot to be said about these. So I suggest that you relax and sort of just open up to absorb this content. Just really kind of allow it to soak in. Don't grip it too hard. If you're an argumentative type, if you're sort of a skeptic type, you might feel tempted to argue. And if you want to do that, that's fine, but save it for the end. And in the meantime, practice being receptive. And let us go. Here we go. Claim worthiness, point 1. So this is fun. And I'm starting with this for a few reasons. One, because it's the inner game. I usually like to do the inner psychology and move out onto the level of technique. And also it's low-hanging fruit for me. It's really easy to have this conversation. The reason being is I have this conversation with so many people. I have spoken at this point, I'm going to say, for the record, over 400 people I have coached at this point, at least one session. And the subject of worthiness comes up in almost all of them in some form or other. So whether it shows up in the form of guilt or shame or regret or sorrow or whatever it is, this sense of I suck, I'm terrible, I'm a disappointment, I'm failing, all of this I would put under the umbrella of worthiness or lack of worthiness. And there's a really sort of quick, cheap trick that I use in order to start introducing people, or at least have people soften to their own worthiness a little bit more, which is something that just as universally as there is this, sense of us feeling unworthy, so do we also do this following thing that I'm going to explain, which is we look at the entire world. So we look at our society, like our family, our community, we look at people on the street, people in our companies, so just like generally people around us, we just automatically ascribe worthiness to them. We just see them generally as good, worthy people, and we reserve the worst and harshest judgment for ourselves. And the irony of that is lost on almost all of us, where like we save our harshest treatment for ourselves. And if asked for a reason, like why are you so harsh on yourself and not others, like sometimes you know, it's possible you'll have a reason. So you'd be like, well, because I did this or that, or I didn't do this or that. But really, if we apply that logic, and if we were to apply it to everybody else, then you would have to resent everybody else as much as you do yourself, and view people as unworthy as you do yourself, and thus canceling out this concept of worthiness, because it's sort of this relative thing. Like if we're all unworthy, then all of us just become worthy, right? Just in the same way that if we're all tall, then nobody's tall, because that's just the height. So I would like for you to bring awareness to your schematic or your rule system for what is worthy and unworthy. So like why you would call yourself unworthy and other people worthy. And I would like for you to consider that this is just an arbitrary piece of information. It's just an arbitrary schematic, that there's no actual truth. And I would love for you to really absorb the truth that nobody appointed you as the universe's judge of who is a good person or a bad person, who is a worthy person, who's an unworthy person, who is worthy of love, consideration, respect. And so you may be hypnotized into this thought that you are unworthy of love, compassion, kindness, forgiveness. And in truth, your opinion actually isn't valid, because your reasoning and justification for withholding worthiness is ultimately flawed. The reason why we know this is because if you move outside of, you know, human culture, right? If you go anywhere into the world, if you go anywhere into the forest and start ascribing value judgments, like you look at a snail and it's like, is the snail worthy of love? Does it deserve kindness? Does it deserve respect? Either you'll answer yes, or you'll probably answer it's a nonsense question, because there's no way of evaluating if a snail deserves respect or not. It just is what it is, and you can choose to respect it or not. You can choose to love it or not, but whether or not it deserves love, it's so absurd. It's like, of course, yes. Like if it exists, if the snail is there, then clearly it deserves respect, kindness, appreciation, if you were to show it as such. And the same applies to a planet, a waterfall, a cloud, a tree, an aardvark, an anteater, the pyramids in Giza, anywhere you go. So that logic doesn't stop here with you, it carries on to you. If you exist, there's a de facto element of your existence, which that the deserving and worthy nature, the value of you is baked in. It can't be done away with. It can't be removed. It can't be revoked in any way. It's just there. It's just part of what you are. And as long as you are you, you shall be worthy of complete love, complete consideration, complete kindness, complete respect. And anything that would say to the contrary is subject to scrutiny. It's a philosophy. It's a series of thought that can be argued and proven and disproven, but it's really just on the level of thought. So it's something to consider. Would you be willing now, then, to release all associated nonsense where you hold little tribunals over yourself about whether or not you deserve love, and whether or not you're worthy of love and appreciation and attention and a space, and worthy of your air, worthy of your water and your salt? Would you be willing to let all of this nonsense go? And if you're really attached to it, like if you're really attached to this idea of your unworthiness, that's fine. Then the starting point for you is just to simply admit that you are attached to the logic that would create the logic that would compute your undeserving. So it's like, you've just made up your mind that you don't deserve it and you're convinced that this is correct. So fine, then let's just admit that you're convinced that you don't deserve love. And that's fine. And we can just allow that conviction to be there, and maybe just opening up a little bit of space that this conviction is not the be all end all. It's not universal truth as written into, like, all of the ancient scriptures that you're a piece of shit. This is just a piece of information that you came upon along the way. And just because you did does not mean it's true. If you're willing to separate, if you're willing to cleave a little gap between that piece of information and your belief, that will be a massive victory. The importance of it cannot be overstated. Because once we introduce that skepticism there, that skepticism can start to blossom. And then as it blossoms, so can this concept of worthiness come in. You are just so, like, your value is already complete. It's so important to say, and it's so beyond description. And yet, the utility, the practical utility that you can bring to the world is increased when you offer respect to yourself. Like, just think of, imagine we were able to conduct an experiment between two, like, fast food restaurants, and like, between the employees, between the employer and the employees, there's respect over here, and over here there's disrespect, and we check in on them, a month later. The one where there was respect and kindness, that one will have been way more productive, and you'll be getting way more done, and the restaurant will be way better. That's just, like, you may be skeptical about that, but I'm willing to put my name on this, that you would discover greater results where respect and kindness run rampant in that domain. So that's the importance of worthiness. So just like to summarize one more time, any logic that would conclude that you're unworthy of love, kindness, compassion is subject to heavy scrutiny. If you're convinced of it, fine, but see if you can introduce skepticism to your own mind about it. And it's better. It's better when you do claim worthiness. So that is point number 1. Point number 2. Express your interior. This one, I think, might be the most exciting of all 4 to talk about and to think about, because what sort of obsesses me in my line of work, if I coach somebody, is I see somebody's potential. Like, I see the magic in them. I see unexpressed creativity in them whenever I work with them. And it's often a very heavy layer of unworthiness that prevents it from being expressed. But then once we brush that away, there's sort of more of a kind of a practical form of unworthiness. That is this belief of nobody is interested in my interior, and nobody wants to hear from my interior. In fact, if people were exposed to my interior, and I'll explain what that is in a second, they would find it gross, bad, overwhelming, annoying, too much. It will be rejected. It will be ridiculed. Nobody will want it. And then I'll be exposed to the world, and it'll be even worse because I exposed myself and my interior got rejected. And yet what I found is that it's just totally the opposite, and it's really funny how it works. And if you've ever observed this in your life, then you know exactly what I mean. Where, like, even in this YouTube channel, right? So I'm coming up to 100 videos that I've been doing just over the last couple of years. And years ago, if you go back to my back material, you'll see me like kind of like a little bit uncomfortable, because I'm like looking at this camera and I'm like, what do they want? What do I do? What do I say? What do they want from me? Am I doing it right? And there's like this big sort of performative element where I'm trying to like give you what I think you want and say what I think you want to hear. And then maybe I'll sneak in a little bit of the essence in there. I'll sneak in a little bit of my own self, but it's under this dense layer of performance and trying to make you like me and try to get you to hit that like button, which is harder than you might think. Please hit it, by the way. Would you please hit the like button? I'd be so grateful. Thank you. Subscribe. Thank you. But then I realized over time that when I do away with the performance element and I bring more of my interior, so I speak to you the way I want to speak to you. I speak to you in an authentic way. I share with you whatever I might share with you, if we were like having a sleepover and it's 3 a.m. and we're huddled under the blankets and we're having a really good time and the rapport is there and the magic is there, and what would I say to you if I were to just really express what's inside of me to be expressed? That stuff tends to be like the most watchable stuff, the stuff that most people really want to spend their time listening to and absorbing. But not only that, but it tends to be the most universal. It tends to be like, if I say what's going on in my interior, like so many more people go, oh yeah, me too. Like, but sort of in this like, oh yeah, of course, that's me. And it's incredibly validating both for the speaker, but also for the listener. I also noticed this with memes, like on, say, Reddit. If you ever go on Reddit or TikTok or places, or Twitter, I'm not really on there, but places where memes show up. This really absurd feeling of when there's a meme that just makes you feel so seen and understood, either in a comfortable way or an uncomfortable way, where it's like, wow, like somebody like reached deep into their own experience and found my experience, and you find yourself bonding with this anonymous meme maker. It's like that. So going into this year, going into 2023, the challenge that I would like to issue to you is that you express your interior, that you conduct yourself from your interior. And how do I do that, you might ask? Well, I guess to speak still somewhat esoterically, just in your imagination, keep one part of you anchored into yourself, into your center. So how would you do that? You could put your hands over your heart. So do this as like a kind of a 15-second exercise. I'm not going to do it because my microphone's here, but like you put your hand over your heart and just like hold your heart for a second and come into your heart and say, hello, heart. I love you. I love you, my heart. And offer some love there. And then say, my heart, my dear heart, what would you like to express? What would you like to share? What's here for you to share? And be quiet. I was going to say, shut up, shut the hell up, and let your heart speak. And you can do this. Like, it's like, I don't know how to do it. Like, don't make it into a thing. Just let a message percolate and see what's there. And you'll know you're speaking your heart when it's like, oh, it just feels like a really direct, like a sentence or a message, or like, I want this, I don't like this, I want to do that, and then the message will start to come from there. That's what I'm doing right now. It's very natural. Like, I mean, I have this like, table here of what I want to say, but I'm just channeling my heart to you right now. So it's like that. And then I guess just one more thing to say on that is, don't do it just once, but turn this into a daily discipline or a weekly discipline, a regular thing that you're doing. Because the way this works, and I love this so much, I love this. This is such a powerful, powerful way of looking at this, is, like there's these volcanoes under the ocean that spew out lava, and like if there's enough force, then it'll spew out like above the ocean, and there'll be this big eruption, and then the lava settles down onto the surface of the water, and it cools, and then you have the makings of an island. But the volcano's still there, so it's like, okay, another one, and more island, and more island, and then then you get vegetation and animal life, and that happens over however many years. So it's like that. It's like, keep speaking, keep expressing your interior, but become more skillful at it over time, so that you develop more of your personal style and your way of going about it. And then it'll start to become more comfortable. And as it becomes more comfortable, you will feel more comfortable digging even deeper into your interior. And then you'll become more specialized and more authentic, and your energetic vibrational signature becomes more distinct, and it becomes something that more and more people want to come back to. So really, I guess that's for a lot of content creators. So if you're a YouTuber like myself, a TikToker like myself, a writer, painter, musician, anything, just keep channeling, and then make that into your discipline, so that you create your own island, so that you can actually just become more nuanced at doing this. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3, create a precedent. And so this is a natural build up off of number 2, which is express your interior, which is, it's a very simple concept. We can have a momentum that puts us on a downward spiral, and it can be that way for a long time. So in other words, we may have bad habits that last for a long time. Maybe we have bad sleep habits that have been going on forever. We may have bad mental habits and emotional habits that have been going on forever. So we're not used to seeing ourselves as very worthy. And we're constantly, bothering ourselves. And maybe we've disappointed ourselves so many times that it feels like we're so calcified and crusted over that it's difficult, that it feels like it'll take that much time to get back to ground zero, let alone to achieve real liftoff and start living the good life. And I want you to stop viewing it like that. And I'm bringing this up with you because, again, like when I speak with people, when I speak one-on-one with people, they'll express like, oh, like I've been in this pattern for so long. I've been struggling with this for so long. And for me, I'm always looking for the way out, like the direct way out. Where if you're caught in a prison cell and the door has been locked for 20 years, once you have the key, you don't need another 20 years in that cell to get out. You just unlock it and get out. Or a different metaphor would be like, say, a heavy backpack that you've been carrying for years. You don't, like once you recognize it, you just take it off. I would like for you to commit to finding the direct way out. And usually it's just by establishing a precedent that you can do that. So if you have been overweight for like the longest time, and you've tried, multiple times to lose weight and it hasn't worked, and maybe you've given up for a little while, just establish a single success to prove to yourself that you do have the power to change your circumstances. So say if you are 30 pounds overweight, just lose 1 pound. Establish a precedent. Get a new ball rolling in a whole different way so that you can go from a 0 to a 1. This really mysterious process of getting from nothing to something, getting from a 0 to a 1, where everything has been terrible and suddenly there's this little glimmer of hope that demonstrates to you, wait, I was able to lose 1 pound. Because if you can lose 1 pound, you can absolutely lose 2, and then on we go from there. So where do you need to establish a precedent? What sort of problems have been bothering you for a long time where you're like losing hope and just kind of lost in disappointment? And what can you do to establish a victory, a win, to demonstrate to yourself that you do have power? So that's number 3. And then finally, point number 4, sell your perfectionism and purchase completion, or completionism, we can call it for fun. I seem to be very parched today, excuse me. Perfectionism is old hat. So a huge thing that stops us from expressing our interior, a huge thing that stops us from setting a precedent, that stops us from taking action, that stops us from moving out of our comfort zone, that stops us from creating something new, completing it, posting it, publishing it, letting people see it. What stops you from showing up as a new version of yourself? Like when I decided to become a coach and I just started saying to people, I'm a coach. It's like really nerve-wracking. They're like, what? You're a coach? It's like, yep. Are you good enough? Do you know how? It's like, yeah. Completion. So what do I mean by completion? Well, I'll start with perfection because that's easy. Perfection is looking at something and seeing a lack of any flaw. But the problem is that perfectionism is just a time suck. It's just procrastination. If you write a song and you're working on it and you're trying to get it complete, you're trying to get it perfect, and you keep listening to it and listening for mistakes and hoping to get rid of all the mistakes, what will happen is you'll just run into an infinite loop of diminishing returns where you just keep finding smaller and smaller errors, where you're already way past the point where anybody would be able to notice anything consciously or unconsciously, and you're just really just preventing yourself from hitting post or publishing. And the reason might be that you haven't really established yourself in worthiness. You don't believe that your interior is worthy of expression, and you are unwilling to establish this precedent of actually posting the thing. And so you stay in this like kind of inside the threshold phase of not doing it. And so the truth that I found and continue to discover is that getting to completion and posting it is so much more valuable. The reason, there's multiple reasons, but maybe the most important one is that you establish a precedent, which means you put something out into the world, and then you're able to begin the feedback loop of putting it out and seeing the reaction you get, seeing what people think. Do they like it? Do they not like it? What parts do they like and not like? And you can begin this upward spiral, this back and forth movement between yourself and the world of putting something out, seeing how it did, and putting it out. This is the true practice of growth and creative mastery. This is how mastery is developed. If you stay within the threshold and you're just like running loops where you do the loop but inside your mind, so you like don't post it but you kind of like finish it and then look for an error and then find it and then tweak it, and you just keep going back and forth in your own mind like, oh, it's not ready, it's not perfect, then you'll never achieve perfection. You'll make the whole thing way scarier and more intense than it ever had to be and ever needed to be. And nobody will see your work, and the world is ultimately diminished through the lack of your presence, the lack of being exposed to your interior. Generally speaking, the world is improved when you offer your art, when you put your art into the world. Why is it improved? Because the rich tapestry of all the creative work that's out there is just made more. It's expanded. The archive becomes richer. And believe it or not, people need it. There's a need of the expression of your interior, of you posting something and putting it out for people to see it, hear it, and not even necessarily art. If you want to lead in some way or create a business and offer a product, especially if there's a calling inside of you to do it. Sell your perfection and purchase completion. Get it to the complete point. Get it to the point where it's complete. It's like, this sort of sense of done. Yeah, it's done. And that's it. So, thank you so much. Thank you. Claim worthiness. Express your interior. Create a precedent. Sell your perfection. Purchase completion. Use these tools. Use the freedom that comes with these tools. Move into 2023. Allow yourself to be guided and carried by the momentum that this creates. If you'd love to go deeper, if you'd like more support, more guidance, if you'd like just some personal attention on your situation so that you can find this alignment, check the link below. Take me up on this wonderful coaching offer. Go to my website. You'll see some of my videos and my blog. I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.